Wait, game or gain?
Gain Wars.
I meant we're talking about sound, so I meant gain. But yeah, sure.
247 episodes is all it took, JJ, for me to join you in the Standing Desk Club.
Hey,
Very nice.
It's official. Hello from 5 feet 9 inches. I'm taller than that, but I was going to where the microphone is.
got it.
Yeah. I'm not much taller than that, but I was going to where the microphone is.
Yeah, because I mean, you want the microphone up to, more or less the level of your mouth, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you want to speak. Well, our microphones you do. I mean, certain microphones you don't. Michael, hello.
Hello.
Would you like to enlighten us into microphone parabolics as the resident musician?
I mean, I don't know a ton about it.
Oh, okay.
We're not frequently mic'd as tuba players.
Probably for the best. No offense.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, certain microphones you want in different positions, but the mics we all use because we want to have nice, beautiful, crisp, full, deep, round, flushed
Looking
out.
for synonyms there.
Keep it going. Keep it going.
Yeah, you want them kind of right in front of your face. That's pretty good. It's been a few days. JJ, does the tired legs ever go away?
Nah, dude. So here's what it is, right? You need to be able to sit down sometimes.
I can do
You can't
that.
stand. Yeah, you can't always stand.
Yeah.
Because you will eventually get tired, especially if you do it for multiple hours at a time. Like ideally, you're kind of like stand for a couple hours, sit for an hour, stand for a couple hours, something like that.
Got it. Okay.
I'm not a therapist or a person who knows about standing or whatever, but like I don't think it's reasonable to have a person stand literally all day. It's too long.
Nice. I got a Japanese company's 2.5 foot tall riser for my monitors, which are now on swing arms that go up and down. And then I have a little tray for my keyboard and mouse that I pull out to just pop it up into the air. That way it kind of is pretty clean. I don't like the idea of those huge like Veridesk attachments, and I didn't want to get a new desk because I have like this cool 1960s metal tanker desk that I didn't want to get rid of.
Your desk is ridiculous, and you should get rid of it because it's bad and too big. That's really the issue. You're attached to this desk that weighs about 7,000 pounds and literally could be made of the side of a battleship.
It might have been. You never know. In the 1960s, they might have been reusing battleships for this desk, and now I can't get rid of it. Thank you very much.
Yep. Yeah, because the real answer is like you just get a desk surface that goes up and down really easy, and then there's no problem.
I may change my mind eventually, but I kind of like it now. That it's all set up. I don't know. It's nice.
Look, there are lots of great standing setups, and you have found one that works for you, and that's great because I think people should do it. It's not that tough, and once you get everything positioned properly, that like it's at the right height, so you're not like looking. You don't have to crane your neck one way or the other way all the time. And
right.
Your arms are at the right angles, and your hands are in the right places and stuff. It's not painful or anything. It's very easy. It's just like sitting down, except you're standing up, and it's better for you, supposedly.
I think it's literally just proving to me that I'm very out of shape because my legs and my back are like, what are you doing?
It's like, think about it like this, right? Like if you go to this will work. This is a thing you can understand. You haven't been to Disneyland in 800 years because it's been closed for forever, right?
Right.
Tomorrow, they're like, Andrew, you and your family are invited to Disneyland. We're closing the whole park just for you, so it's safe. However, you're going to pretend there are lines, and so you're going to have to stand in 2-hour lines for all the attractions you want to go on. At the end of that day, your back and your legs are going to be killing you from standing up, right? It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the standing without moving, really. Like if you were walking for the same length of time,
Exactly.
you wouldn't feel the same like strain in your back and in your legs, but it's just the fact that you're standing up, and if you're anything like me, you sort of will unconsciously lock your knees from time to time, which is no bueno.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, don't do that. It's something I have to like constantly practice is like shifting my weight from one leg to the other leg and like shuffling my feet around a little bit because otherwise it is very easy to just stand here, lock both your knees,
Yep.
and then eventually you just like start feeling yourself swaying a little bit, and then the step after that is you pass out.
Yeah.
Well, at least I'm already home.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you don't want to pass out on the floor, man. It's not good.
This gigantic metal desk will catch me.
Ooh.
Oh man.
And then you will have a concussion in addition to being passed out. Great. Everything is good.
Oh boy. Welcome to We Were Gamers.
That's the advice they tell you about standing up, like standing in one place for a long time for anything, right? Like that was advice I was given and have given people during weddings, because it's tendency of people that are, in the wedding party or whatever to stand up. And you have to stand up there for potentially a long time. Stand there and lock your knees.
Whoopsie daisy.
I have seen people fall over in the middle of weddings before.
Yeah, I have too.
Oh, I am not part of that crew. I have not seen that happen. I don't need to. I don't need to. I'm not saying I want to, but I'm just surprised.
It was a crazy happening.
Yeah.
Luckily they didn't hurt themselves too bad.
Kidding.
So.
Wow. Hey. Hi everyone. Welcome back. This is a fun beginning because I could just talk more hardware if you guys want to do I don't know if it's even a component class, but we could make it one later, I guess.
Did we say that it was 247?
I think we said it was 247. I might have said it. I don't know. Hi.
I'm interested in hardware if there's hardware to talk about.
There is hardware to talk about. I'm going to make some noises here and see what you think this device is.
That sounds kind of like a controller.
Or a mouse?
Michael nailed it on the head. Yeah. It's the loudest controller you've ever heard in your life. I think I talked about last week or the week before, probably the week before, about getting quote unquote into Warzone. The Call of Duty Battle Royale free to play game. There are some motions that you should make in order to be good at that game that require you to either claw your fingers in a weird shape or to join the custom controller market. Now, this is, it's ridiculous, right? Like, most people don't need to do this.
You can't just, like, rebind the buttons?
You could on a PC. I play sometimes on the PS4.
I see.
And so SCUF, the controller maker, who's responsible for making the Xbox Elite 1, I don't know if they made the Elite 2 controller, which gets a lot of good reviews, also makes PlayStation and PC controllers. So on the PC, you can rebind very easily. On the PS, you can rebind a little bit, but not enough. They want you to do this thing in the game where you slide and jump almost at the same time while shooting. And it's hard to do all of those things while keeping your hand on the aiming stick. So this was a thing I wanted to do. Not that you have to do, but I wanted to do to get better at that game. And a lot of the people suggested going out and getting one of these SCUF controllers that have, I don't know if you've seen these, but if you look up like the SCUF Vantage, they have like underside triggers for where your fingers go underneath the controller. And those are those are like auto bound to the 4 buttons on the top of the controller. In this case, because it's a PlayStation controller, the triangle, square, circle, X. And those buttons are then bound to those automatically. You can rebind them. You can even rebind them on the controller. They have like an ability to do that. Wow. I I don't know that people need to get one of these types of things. But in a way, do you guys have, I mean, mechanical keyboards, maybe? Yeah, you both have mechanical keyboards. You both have high DPI mice. It's weird that this long into gaming, I feel like I've accepted whatever the system comes with is the best that exists. Because a lot of the time when you talk about buying extra controllers for your machine, you're talking about buying like Hori battle pads and, you know, like all the off-brand exactly the same thing that the main brand makes for $10 cheaper, you know?
Right. Yeah.
This feels like buying a mechanical keyboard as a controller. You know, like all the buttons have a much more crisp feel to them. The sticks are way more sensitive, both of the sticks. The trigger actions, both sides of the triggers, you can actually set stops in them. So like they don't go down that far when you activate them. So like when you're shooting, right, you pull the trigger and it stops maybe 1.5 millimeters instead of the full travel of like an Xbox controller, which is almost an inch, right?
So a much faster firing rate essentially in terms of your reflexes.
Your reflex, yeah. Well, and also your reflexes in getting off of the trigger, right? Like if you need to get off of that thing and move your hand to throw a grenade or whatever, you've gone 3/4 less of an inch to get back off of the trigger. This is a huge adjustment, like a really huge adjustment. I didn't realize how stiff the controller sticks are on most controllers. When you feel this thing, it's held together. It's by rubber bands are the resistance, and it's very light resistance comparatively. So I had to turn down a bunch of sensitivities in games and all sorts of stuff like that. And then you get into like you can change out all these things because it's completely customizable. Wow. There's a market,
you
man.
went full esports. That's what I just heard. You went full esports. You're gonna be like pro Call of Duty player next year.
No, so that's the thing. I don't want to go full esports entirely. I, in fact, don't want to even play on the PC anymore at all. I want to switch fully to the PlayStation because there's not. I mean, I guess you can script controllers or something and really try to cheat that way. But like, I have watched replays of us playing the cross-gen or the cross-console systems and like the replay of me getting shot out of a helicopter where it's a very clear aimbot, you know, and I'm supposed to only be playing against people with a controller, even though I'm on the PC, but still, because they're on a PC, how did you hit me like that? There's absolutely no way, right? And there's some.
I mean, people hack these consoles too and do the same thing.
Yeah,
I don't know that it's like a guaranteed thing.
No, I think I agree entirely with you, but I think that if you are able to limit your exposure, you'll, you know, find much less of that scenario happening.
Yeah. The console cheating is more expensive, therefore.
Well, just the interest level would be lower, right?
No, I imagine that if it was cheap, people would be equally interested. But the difference is the cost is expensive, so therefore less people do it.
It's slightly harder, even if it was cheap. But yeah, so you know, in the interest of switching over to the PlayStation, I wanted to play controller instead of e-sport it up with the keyboard and mouse, even though people will tell you that's the only way to play a shooter, right? If you want to be good, quote unquote. I don't think that's true, actually. I feel like I liked playing Halo on the PC with the keyboard and mouse because we weren't being competitive about it.
Sure.
I like playing on this controller in a competitive game. It gives me much more of a sense of quick reaction ability sometimes. I don't know why. But
yeah, so you're going full esports. I was right.
I just thought it was interesting that 34 years old and I'm like, wait a minute. Somebody's out here making side controllers that are better than the controllers that come with the consoles.
And that was the whole proposal of that Xbox Elite controller, right?
Absolutely, but that was Xbox putting it out, right? And I didn't really look into why it was made and who made it at the time. But Xbox has been kind of that kind of we're interested in that. I don't know if you remember with the 360 had 2 controllers actually. No, 3. There's the original, the Slim, and then the Slim had a transforming D-pad. So like if you were playing fighting games and not fighting games, you could twist the D-pad and change the way that it worked. And so Xbox to me has always been kind of interested in making a quote unquote better controller. But I didn't realize like, I don't know what's your guys' experience, but you know, back even starting with the N64, when you bought a off-brand controller, you could be relatively assured it would break eventually.
I think the only time I've bought non like main brand controllers has been for my computer. Otherwise, I've just gone with the ones that come from the hardware manufacturer.
I was just gonna say I don't even buy controllers for my computer. I just plug my controllers from my consoles into my computer.
That's a now.
Sure, you can do that.
That's now though. You couldn't do that with a PlayStation 1 controller right away.
Sure. I wasn't playing games with a controller on my PC back then either, right?
Right, sure, fair.
But yeah, I actually have one of those 360 controllers with the transforming D-pad. So that was the one I used. But it is I think, you know, people of our age group, I imagine, all knew that friend who had like GoldenEye on the N64, and you went over there to go play GoldenEye or whatever. And then he had 3 controllers that were like, all right. And then the last one was that one you didn't want to get.
Yeah. That definitely had that friend with a PlayStation and the controller where you had to push like a certain button on it. Otherwise, the whole thing didn't work.
Yeah. There was always that friend who just had like, you know, because it's like the controllers were expensive.
Sure.
And they still are. You know, they're not like the controllers have gotten cheaper. I just play less local multiplayer games. So I don't typically buy second controllers anymore.
Well, and even back then, you know, grandma went to the EB Games and said, Johnny needs another controller for his PlayStation. And they're like, well, this one's just as good as the other one. Wink,
and
wink.
It's $10.
It's $10 cheaper, grandma. And our markup is 50% more.
Yeah.
It's a strange new world to have entered with a premium controller. I can see why people like them a lot.
Yeah, totally.
Those triggers underneath are addicting.
I think it's a similar reason to why people like that Xbox Elite controller, but also it was a part of the reason why people liked the Steam controller when it came out. I never got one, but I know there were some people who really liked it because it had so much programmability.
Sure.
In that you could change so many things about that controller.
Yeah.
And yeah, it didn't like really catch on or really, you know, become a big deal, but it had all kinds of weird buttons on the face that you could change to be whatever you wanted them to be. The sticks were different in that they were like track pads, which is good, but also weird. And, you know, had all kinds of like new and interesting ideas in controllers, which is just sort of what this is doing, right? These like back touch things is basically the same idea, right? It's like, hey, this is a convenient way to hit buttons. Your fingers are already here holding the controller anyway. Put a button.
Yeah, it allows you a lot more reaction time because you don't have to move your fingers around as much. It's an amazing idea. And just like that Steam controller on the computer, at least I can set up, they have an app where you can set up like 20 different game profiles and it'll change the controller completely. You can map every single button. And then if you're playing on like a PlayStation, it has hardware remapping. So you can flip a switch, press a button, then press a different button, and it'll copy that button, like, right? You know, so like you can't move buttons around, but like this button then becomes also this other button. So, and then you can reset it back to factory with just a little switch also. So it's kind of cool.
And so it's just doing it in software inside the controller and just telling the PlayStation on the other end that like, hey, he touched the same button. Trust me. Yeah. You know, that's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. It's a cool little device. I I don't.
Like they should just. Why don't they just let you do that from the system? Like why can't PlayStation just let you reprogram all the buttons?
I mean,
who cares?
Xbox.
If I want to have,
Go ahead.
thing.
Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
I was gonna say it seems like such a simple thing, doesn't it?
if I want to have no X button and I only want to have triangle, I want only triangle. I want to hit every. I love the triangle button. Every button is the triangle button. Let me do it. It's gonna make this controller completely unusable.
JJ wants to turn Mortal Kombat into One Punch Man.
Yeah.
I mean, you should.
That's the button that maybe that's the button for the one button fatality or whatever.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I bet you those companies are somewhat afraid of complete remapping becoming a way that in for people to like hack the consoles or the controllers to make people be able to quote unquote, I don't know, cheat, I guess. Xbox has the right idea of saying, hey, we should invest in making a better version of this. I mean, if you were smart and you were PlayStation, you should go out and buy SCUF. You have the money. And just you just be like, hey, tell us. Don't even ask us anything. Just tell us what the controller is and should be and what software you need on the PlayStation. And they should just do that.
Well, I think there is an argument though that Andrew can hold his controller up to the microphone again and click it a couple times, and we can have a discussion about why you might not want this.
That so much reminds me of the sound of the joystick.
Allow me to hold my controller up to the microphone and press buttons on it. It doesn't even break the noise gate on the microphone.
I know. Well, that's to be fair.
Silent.
To be fair, that's the back triggers. But if I'm pressing the front buttons, right, like they're still pretty loud. They have a real pop to them. Versus a normal controller, which is that squishy feeling where you push down on those buttons. These really pop back up. They push your finger out when you're done pushing them.
And again, the buttons on my controller are silent. And
yeah, but I think
that is something that should be there for people that want it, right? Like you and people playing this Call of Duty game that feels this helps them. That should be an option that you have, right?
I think though that you could say
I don't think that they should only make that. I don't think that controller should replace.
No. I think you make the PS cheapo, the lower PlayStation have one easy standard controller, and then you have the Pro one come with a Pro level quote unquote controller.
Or just do the same thing that Microsoft does.
Sell a separate one for $200.
It's like $200 or whatever, right? Yep. Sell the PlayStation maximum controller or whatever, and it's the same thing, but also has all these other options and stuff, and it costs $300 because we can. And there's a PlayStation.
I mean, if you play PC games and you like having expensive equipment all over the place, I honestly think people should check out maybe finding a used Xbox Elite 1 or grabbing an Elite 2 when they go on sale at the end of the year. It has changed my opinion of controller gaming a lot. I have always been pro controller. You played Halo on the controller, and I thought he's probably having a more fun time than me. and I've kept my Xbox 360 controllers for how many years now? The Xbox 360 has been dead, and that's because I've enjoyed them that much. And then it's very good. It took me a couple days to get used to the fact that in this instance I have to press lighter, and this isn't. I have to press harder because this is the way the controller should have been. Yeah. Well, that's enough about that. I think it's
I mean for years, until maybe 2 years ago, I was using a PS3 controller on the PC.
That was probably getting pretty squishy.
Yeah. Eventually, I noticed the stick. One of them was drifting.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, "This is done. Goodbye."
You can the SCUF one allows you to hardware dead zone in the app, and then a lot of games have started building in stick drift control because it's happening so often. I mean, The Switch was plagued.
Windows even have even has like options and settings and
Yeah.
stuff you can configure.
Yeah.
And I started digging into it. I'm like, what if I just don't do this and I use a different
Sure.
controller?
Yeah. I mean, if your thing has stick
Yeah.
drift, it might be time anyway, but
Yeah, and then
it's
I
not
got
uncommon.
rid of it. Problem solved.
Yep.
It's like I already had other controllers. I just wasn't using them.
Well, Michael, did you use a controller on your PC or did you use a keyboard and mouse to try out Horizon Zero Dawn, a PlayStation game, by the way?
Yes, a PlayStation exclusive no longer. I was controller all the way on this one.
All right. So you got the Xbox Elite 2. Good.
It's in the mail.
Got to use the stimmies, man.
So yeah, I finally, having finished Odyssey, I fired up Horizon Zero Dawn, which I have been, I think for a while, I was unrealistically expecting might eventually show up on PC as a port, and then all of a sudden they announced that it was happening. So I finally got to do it.
I was gonna say it's not it's not unheard of now. I mean, this thing broke the barrier. Horizon Zero Dawn was the floodgate, and now we're gonna get the other never coming to PC, right? Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
someday.
Actually, I mean, is this a joke?
Is Kingdom Hearts not coming anymore?
Yeah, it's already been announced. It comes out in March.
No,
Yeah,
that was my point. Yeah, the Horizon Zero Dawn was the, oh my goodness, when they announced that like a year and a half ago, it was like, whoa, PlayStation exclusives are coming to PC. Maybe, and I think on this podcast I made the joke about Kingdom Hearts 3 for PC, and we all thought no way, and now yeah, coming in March, right? So I'm glad you held out, Michael.
Yeah, me too.
Well, maybe keep holding out based on how much they're planning.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fork out for those while they're still an Epic exclusive.
Oh, you mean the Kingdom Hearts games?
Yeah.
The pricing is insane. You can buy all of the Kingdom Hearts games minus the DLC on PlayStation sometimes for like $30
easily.
They want $50 per game on Epic.
Well, the first one is 2 games.
Pre-order. Look, Andrew, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're still talking $100 versus 70.
Yeah.
Or versus 30.
Insane.
All right. Okay. Dinosaurs.
Horizon. I want to hear
dinosaurs.
Yeah, so this takes place on far future Earth, where basically our civilization has collapsed and the remnants of humanity live in small tribes, trying to survive in a world that is dominated by giant mechs.
Sentient mechs, right?
Yeah.
Sentient or more like
Yeah,
animal sentience, I guess.
More like animal sentience. The different machines, they travel in herds, and they graze, and like dig for other materials, essentially.
So it's not like Skynet where there's like the overlord brain or whatever.
Maybe
it's just like,
I mean, there might be. I am not far
okay.
in the game to have an answer for that yet.
Okay.
But yeah, it's
this is by the same people that made Tomb Raider. No,
this is by Guerrilla Games.
Guerrilla Games, the people that made Killzone.
Yes.
Got it.
And they've done a great job with this. I mean, it's one of those games where just first and foremost the landscape is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean that's my memory of those Killzone games was beautiful environments.
Right there is a fast travel system, but you find yourself not really wanting to use it because you can just run through these awesome environments.
Is it open world or is it like running through an environment as a map and then you move to another map and then you move to
No, so it's fully open world.
Oh, okay. JJ, sorry.
It reminds me a lot, actually, though I'm glad you mentioned them, of those Tomb Raider games.
Yeah.
Just the combat style, like your primary weapon is a bow, and then you have a couple of other you have a sling for launching different elemental projectiles. So you can toss like shot canisters, and you can toss fire bombs and freeze grenades.
Cool.
And then you've got what they call a trip caster, which basically sets tripwire traps. And then you have a rope caster for tying down larger enemies so they can't move.
Cool.
Can you do like the sweet Hoth battle level thing where you fly in circles, run in circles around them, and trip them with giant dinosaurs?
Oh, it's sort of like that. Yeah, you're basically you spear them with a rope and then stake it to the ground, and then you have to strafe your way around them to secure a second anchor point so that they can't move.
Oh, what is the point of securing these beasts? Are you doing
Is
something for?
that some of them can fly, so you're keeping them on the ground. Some of them can come charging at you and very quickly kill you.
Yeah, but what is
Um,
your character's motivation for capturing beasts? Are we just monster hunting here, where it's like I need to build a skin zoo, or like is there a reason to be attacking mecha monsters?
No. So part of it is that you can loot them for salvage once you take them down, and the salvage you can use to upgrade your weapons, to trade to merchants for better weapons or armor. You can get rare stuff that lets you um, upgrade your capacity to carry ammunition, things like that.
Okay,
Hmm.
cool.
So like how Breath of the Wild open worldy is this?
It's not it's not quite the if you see it you can go there like Breath of the Wild is, but it's pretty close. There aren't a whole lot of places that um, you can't get to or climb on top of.
And is the I mean, I don't even want to call it combat, but like I guess it's combat in a way. Kind of varied, or did you already kind of come up with a system? Or I mean,
No, so it is necessarily varied. So in addition to the mechs, there are also human
uh oh,
enemies. So there are like bandit camps and roving bands of bandits that you also will encounter. So your style has to change depending on what you're up against, whether it be different kinds of the mechs that have different weaknesses that force you to adjust, or if you're facing a dozen enemies, human enemies at the same time that are all trying to swarm you.
sure,
Hmm.
okay,
So you
Okay.
you have to you have to adjust to take advantage of weaknesses, basically.
cool.
At least, early on in the game.
And so there are also human enemies as well, right? Sounds
Yes.
like.
Yeah. So there are also human enemies.
Right on.
I think two of the things I've liked best so far is that one, the story opens up with you actually as a child, and you play through the first hour or so of the game as the main character's name is Aloy. And you play through the first hour of the game as child Aloy, which
Young
works
Link.
really well because you're learning the skills of hunting, and story wise I think it just fits better to learn that as a child rather than
Yeah.
being an adult and like, here's how you use a bow, adult person.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
In a world where everyone would learn to use a bow as soon as they could stand up.
Mhm.
So that was fun, to have the tutorial essentially be childhood. Then you grow up as the story really takes off. And then two was learning that pretty early in the game you get an upgrade for your spear that lets you override the machines. At which point they will fight on your side if you are in combat, and for certain ones of them you can ride them like a horse.
You get Cappy.
You get Mecha Epona.
Oh, nice. Nice. I like it. I saw a picture of
It's
her.
all well and good until Epona turns around and attacks.
I saw a picture of
Yeah.
her like riding a mecha rhinoceros or something like that from the second game.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I'm into that. Is it like a mystery story or is it more like a Breath of the
Sort
Wild
of.
style
There are a couple of
problems?
there are a couple of different things going on. The main story is that your village gets attacked.
Sure.
And it's very specifically gets attacked because of you. And so it's you have to set out on this quest to A, hunt down the people who attacked your village, and B, figure out who you are that they were trying to kill you specifically.
That's cool.
Hmm.
Coming of age in a way.
Yeah.
Nice.
I have had this game on my wish list of games to play for quite a long time.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. One thing that I will say that you will appreciate, JJ, in terms of things that I know you don't like about certain open world games, there is a finite number of side quests.
That's good.
Well, finite being 100
Yes.
million anyway. Like.
I mean, there are a lot, enough to make it feel like a fully rounded out game for there to always be something to do, but it's not like they're just being procedurally generated all the time into infinity.
Yeah, that's the stuff that I'm against. It's like if someone had to sit down at a computer and make that side quest, I will consider playing it.
Yeah.
If someone outsourced that to an AI, probably not.
Yep. So yeah, there is a 100% completion. So the game tracks your progress, and you can hit 100% because there are, a finite number.
Sweet.
Plus there's DLC that is packaged with the game.
Oh, that's good.
So you don't have to buy it separately.
Yeah, it's like the Game of the Year edition already. That's nice.
Yes.
They need to do that's so good, man.
Well, considering this game is a PS4 launch game,
Gosh, did it come out?
I think it
ago?
was
I guess
like
it
a
has been
PS4
quite a
year
while,
one
yeah.
game. I don't know if it was a launch game, but
I think so.
yeah, it was that long ago. I'm pretty sure. It came bundled with mine. I just haven't put it in yet to try it.
Yeah.
But I guess I should. It sounds awesome.
You definitely should. Highly
I'll
recommend.
use my new controller. All right.
Give you an advantage over those robot.
Oh man,
dinosaurs.
I can X button them so good. You don't need a controller to play board games, JJ.
Nah, man, because that's what I got up to this weekend. I played some physical board games. Who likes board games on this podcast?
I love them.
I think we're all raising our
Yeah,
hands.
Yes.
I did. I really honestly did, and then was like, wait, we're not on video today. JJ, did you have to hold every character's cards in your hands? I mean,
No, let's talk about it. So there are two games that I played. My wife and we know each other well, and so we both got each other board games for Valentine's
that's
Day.
wonderful.
Awesome.
And so what we are doing is so there are two games. I'll start with one, and we'll talk about the other one later if we feel like it, or we can save it for next week. We'll see how it goes. The first game is called Splendor. I'm not sure if either of you have heard of this game before.
I have
maybe?
seen
It's relatively...
this cover art somewhere, and I can't place it. I don't know why I've seen this. Maybe it just reminds me of Legend of the Five Rings art or something.
It's an oldish looking man holding like a blue gem.
Yeah.
No, I've seen this cover art
See?
too. Maybe I've just seen it like on the shelf.
super
walking through
familiar.
It
Target.
might be.
Dude, maybe.
It might be. Yeah, it might have been. I mean, I've been to a billion game stores in my short tenure on this planet, so it's probably crossed my field of view.
The game isn't super old based on like the copyright date on the manual, but also who knows?
But the art has that mid to
yeah.
late 90s board game art for sure.
Yeah, it really does, right? So anyway, I don't know when this game came out, but the game basically is played at, I think it's from 1 to 4 people, and you're essentially buying there's a set of tokens on the side, each of which has is a different color and has a picture of a gem on them. So the white tokens have a diamond on them, the red tokens have a ruby on them, the green ones have an emerald, blue ones have a sapphire. What am I thinking? The black ones have an onyx, and then there are yellow ones which have like a little symbol for a like a gold mark or something. It has like words on it because it's like a printed coin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each of the gems are a currency. I think there are, I don't know, the number of gems that are in each pile depends on the number of players, I guess. So there are less when you play with 2, but when you play with 4, there would be more. But the way it works is those are your currency, and out on the board are a series of cards. I think there's 4 in each row. And there are 3 rows. Like the bottom row is the lowest level of cards, then there's the middle level of cards, and the top level.
Oh,
of
in
cards.
terms of like their expense or their worth,
yeah,
or whatever.
Essentially, both, probably, right? And so it's like the lowest level of cards. Maybe it costs 4 of or 1 each of 4 different resources, and that gives you, for instance, like 1 ruby for a card. Like the card has like a ruby at the top and is worth perhaps no points.
Sure.
But if you get enough of those, right? So you basically spend your turn, you pick up gems, the little gem tokens. There's different actions you can take. Like what you could take 2 of the same one, but only if no one else has any of that one. Or you could take 1 each of 3 different ones. You could take a card from in play and put it in your hand. And if you do that, you get to take one of the wild cards.
Okay.
The yellow golds are a wild card, essentially. So it's like, oh, you can use this yellow in place of any one other. And then once you have the resources assembled to buy one of the cards, you pay your resources back and you put the card up in front of you. And the cards have a number on like the left-hand corner and like a gem symbol on the right-hand corner. The number is how many points they're worth. You get 15 points, you win the game. The gem in the right-hand corner is essentially a discount on gems of that type going forward.
Okay, so this is like almost Race to the Galaxy here.
It has some of that feel for sure. Yeah, definitely.
It's like a simpler Race to the Galaxy. Not simpler, maybe, but definitely
it's
different.
Yeah, it's different in some ways than Race to the Galaxy, but it definitely has this feel of like, as you're acquiring more and more cards in front of you,
you need to develop synergies, to develop cheapness, to develop.
There are no synergies because the cards really just have like, all they do is make things cheaper, right? But the things the next level up also cost way more than the things that.
I'm looking at one that's like free to 5.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so it's like, oh, well, you could get this one that's 4 gems total, but 1 of each type, but it's worth no points. And the one the next level up might be 3 diamonds, 1 emerald, and 1 onyx.
This one I'm looking at.
It's way harder to get 3 of a kind than it is to get 1.
This one that I'm looking at is 7 greens and 3 reds for 5 points.
Because getting 7 of anything is a giant pain. even if you have a ton of the I think what do they call them? Bonuses or whatever. Like, essentially, like, you're going to get a discount on things going forward, right? Even if you have a ton of those green discounts, you're still probably going to have to get like 3, maybe 4 greens in your hand to pick, or maybe including some wild cards. That's really hard to do when your typical action to pick up gems is 1 of 3 different colors. It's really hard to get 3 of a kind, and especially because the number of gems you're allowed to hold in your hand is limited to 10 exactly.
Oh no.
I don't know if I don't know if that's a 2-player rule or not, but I think it is or is not, because otherwise, like, there isn't a ton of these tokens. You can run out pretty quick, and it's actually really easy to like intentionally pull off like enough tokens to like deny the other person the color they want.
Oh, so they can't get the 7 greens because you've taken greens.
I have 2 greens sitting here, but I'm not using them, and now you can never have them.
Right.
Kind of a thing. That's not like the primary strategy in the game. Definitely the strategy is a lot more about like, okay, which of these cards that are out here can I get? and which of them are worth points, because a lot of the low level ones are worth nothing. And then it's like, okay, well, this one's worth 1 and it's relatively easy to assemble, and 1 is fine, but like this one's 2, and this other one, if I save for a while, is 5, and that's like a ton.
I see a version of this game that has been reskinned for space, and it looks exactly like Race for the Galaxy.
Yeah, the difference with Race for the Galaxy though is there's the feeling of like building an engine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where as you play your cards, the cards sort of work together with each other to do more.
Yeah, there's another layer of
powerful,
complexity here that's not here. Yeah.
This game is really more like, what are the cards that are in front of me? And you can draw from the face down from the decks as well if you just, don't like what's out. But, there's a lot you can never really there's no way to like accelerate, right? Like in Race for the Galaxy, once you sort of assemble a certain set of cards, they all start working together and you like feel your power accelerating towards the victory condition. In this game, you never really accelerate. Maybe once you get to a certain point, you hit like the
that's awesome.
There's this mechanic called nobles, which are essentially little cards that sit at the top, and they're worth some number of points. And once you assemble a certain number of bonuses that are listed on the noble will come, to your side, and there's essentially free points for if you got 4 sapphires and 4 diamonds. This person, you get 3 extra points, right? In addition to whatever your cards were.
I love this version Michael found, the reskinned Marvel version.
The Marvel version where you're trying to gather Infinity Stones to get the gauntlet.
This is awesome.
I wonder how that works, because you need a lot of. Oh no, okay. I think it
looks like it's just a reskin. Yeah.
Okay. Because there's really only one of each Infinity Stone, right? And that wouldn't be how this.
No, it seems like a reskin where you're like building a hero team instead of buying property or whatever the original one was.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's cool. What is the interactivity? Is there like other than I see you're going for green, so I'm taking green? Is there offense in terms of like I'm going to break your this, that, or the other?
So there isn't really a way to directly interact with the other person.
So it's almost like multi-solitaire.
But the pool of cards is face up in front of all players. So you can, because you can take cards into your hand, like maybe you say, like, I can't afford this card this turn, right? So I can't pay for it.
Sure.
But I can see that it could be bought by other people. So you can pick it up and then no one else has access to it.
Puerto Rico fragged an eye, right?
Yeah, definitely, right? And so there's definitely an aspect of that where like, oh, I can see they have 3 green bonuses and they already have 4 reds. And if they get 1 more, they're going to get this noble that's worth 3 extra points or 4 points or whatever. I'm going to take this one off the board so they can't get it, for free or very cheaply, right? Even if I don't want it, I take this off the board. I get the gold token, which is, not nothing, but it's only 1 instead of 3 gems.
Yeah,
right?
Other than the decks being shuffled, is there randomness to the game?
The decks being shuffled means that the cards that are out are different. The nobles are different as well. There's a pile of them, and you get only 3 per game. No.
Okay.
There's no.
Well,
dice.
This looks cool as heck. How did your game go?
It's awesome. We've played a bunch of rounds of it. We've both won. It's one of those games where like the first time you kind of have to go slow, again, because you're trying to figure out, all right, like what is actually good to be doing here? Like, is it better to hold a bunch of these cards or just buy the ones that are face up, or, how does that go? But I think it's been more interesting, the later games that we've been playing. I really like Splendor. This game is cool.
Hulk is only 3 victory points and Hobgoblin is 5.
Don't look at me, man. I didn't choose. The art on the base game ones are just like generic,
like elephants and
Renaissance era noble looking people and ships and statues and stuff like that.
I'm wondering what the markup is between this and the Marvel. I'm looking at both next to each other. That's funny. That's cool, man.
Yeah, it is a totally fun game.
Nice.
And the other game we played is called Tiny Towns.
Okay.
Has anyone heard
I know
of this
where
one?
this is headed. No.
This
Do you? I don't
sounds.
know.
This actually sounds familiar. I feel like I've seen this one.
Okay. So Tiny Towns is made by Andrew
Yep.
AEG.
Yep. I've heard of
Yeah.
it. I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
Yeah, a brand who we used to
Ven-
play card
the
games.
venerable,
Long time ago.
and somehow still not dead AEG.
I suspect
Mm,
they don't have as many employees as they used to, Andrew.
Collectible card
But
games used to be a thing.
yeah, hey, Magic's still out
Yeah,
there.
but I mean, what's
But
their
yes,
digital profit versus their card profit? You know what I mean? Real cards.
I mean, they still make real cards. I don't know what you're
I
talking
know.
about.
What's the profit difference between that and their online game is all I'm saying. This looks like
Oh,
a
see, Magic, you just sell both. See, that's how they
right.
get you.
This looks like a euro.
It is. I would say this game is like a cross between Carcassonne and
This looks like Alhambra.
I don't know. There's some Alhambra in there, right? Because there's like a ton of different types of buildings, which is definitely Alhambra-ish. But Carcassonne, in that you have a little map and you have to place these buildings on a map. So the way this game works is you're given a grid. Every player has a grid, their own grid, so you can't mess with other people's grids, which is nice. And the idea is to lay out a town on this grid, filling as many squares as is possible, and producing as many points as is possible based on the buildings that are available to you. In order to build a building, you have to use the correct resources. There's a pile of resources, and I think there are 5 different ones. And each building needs cubes, which are the little resources, laid out in a specific order on the grid in order to then take those cubes off and place the building in a single spot that those cubes previously occupied.
Okay. I see.
Oh,
So you have to
okay.
remove your cubes to win.
It is Carcassonne. It is Carcassonne and Tetris. That's what this game is.
Interesting. Yeah.
This is really hard to do.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the logistics of this, and just like I'm sure, especially in the late game, where you have only certain real estate available on your board, and you have to find a piece that fits into the
Yeah.
what
This
you
is
have
going to be one of those
left.
games where memorizing what types of patterns are out there will help you immensely.
Well, let me go ahead and tell you, you don't need to memorize. The card is in front of you and available to everyone.
All the
time.
cards are just laid out.
So there is one secret card. We haven't yet played a game using it because they recommend for your first couple games you don't use
That
them.
makes sense.
Okay.
Because let me tell you, it's hard without the secret cards. The secret cards are called monuments, and they're essentially like an Uber building, right? It's like the best building you could build, and they are more complicated and then produce like stuff like what would be like a set bonus, or like they give you some condition, right? That could produce a bunch of points or not, depending on whether you fulfill it or not. Each building then is worth a certain number of points. If you get houses aren't worth that many points, but if you can provide food to the houses by building another building that gives food, then maybe your houses could be worth 3 points each. That's pretty
Cool.
good. You can
Okay.
build a well, or some other building that takes the place of a well, and a well gets points for every house that touches it, up, down, left, and right. The game is all about things being up, down, left, and right,
Tetris.
no diagonals. So it's helpful that it doesn't use diagonals for any kind of like touching and adjacency in that, because it just makes it very clear. If it's this one, is it touching up, down, left, or right anything? No, not
Good.
adjacent.
Yeah,
right?
that's good.
Way easier. You can build houses or buildings like the tavern, which is worth more points the more taverns you build. It's like all taverns are worth a certain number of points, but it depends on how many taverns you have, how many total points you get, right?
Sure.
It's like, oh, 1 is worth 2, but 2 is worth 4, and then 5 is worth 15 or something, right? There are churches, which get more points depending on how many houses you have, but the houses have to be fed, otherwise the churches doesn't get as many points. What other stuff is there? There's a whole bunch of different kinds of buildings, and there's like 5 classes of builds, 6 classes. certain number of classes of buildings, and each, there's something like a factory or a workshop or something like this, and usually that has some ability to like either let you save cubes or move cubes around or change cubes for other kinds of cubes. There's some building that is like the more of these buildings you have, the more points you can get. There's like a church or a some building in that vein that does something related to houses. There's a building like the well that's based on adjacency. There's the houses. Houses are in every game, so that's the one constant. And each building has a different grid pattern of the resources that it needs. It might need 2 yellows and a red laid out in this specific configuration, or this one needs a gray and a brown, or this one needs 2 browns and a blue and a green. All this
The
stuff,
Architects
right?
Guild looks extremely unstable.
Probably a lot of them are extremely unstable.
Hmm.
And so then, you're laying these pieces out all around and trying to figure out how to like. So the way the game works, right, is like whoever is starting, they choose a resource, and both players have to place that resource on their grid. And then after you've placed a resource, that's the problem, right? It's not just like I place one on and then you place one and then it goes back and forth all nice and happy. No, I pick and you have to place it too.
Ooh.
Yeah,
aggressive.
it gets really rough because you're like, oh, well, I can see like your little layout here looks like that's going to be a cottage. I'm going to pick some other completely useless resource to you, but helps me build a church over here. And then you have this cube sitting somewhere. You're like, well, now what am I going to do with this cube?
Yeah,
right?
where can you put it? Sort of thing.
And that you're not going to block yourself because you have to lay them out in the order on the card,
Sure.
right? Maybe it means you need to make an L piece, or you have to make a zigzag, or you have to do, like a little block or something like that. And if you can't make that shape, you're out of luck. And it gets really complicated, man.
This looks awesome.
And then it is super fun. And at the end, you are penalized for open squares are negative points, and resources left on your board that don't turn into a building are also negative points.
That makes sense.
As well as, maybe you have negative points from some buildings or something like that. There are other ways you could end up with negative points as well. And then the buildings sort of tell you how many points they're worth, and you total up your scores at the end, and there you go. It is interesting that this game doesn't just like end once like one person fills up their board or is out of moves or whatever.
Sure.
Like, it doesn't just end. The other person gets to keep going.
Wait, what? You don't just get the one more turn. They get like more and more turns.
They get to keep. Yeah. If you somehow like were able to build it so that you have like the other person has filled up their board inefficiently or something, you get to keep going and keep filling up your board in whatever way you want.
What?
Which like generally just means you destroy them in points, because you have clearly been efficient and they have not been, right?
Wow.
I mean, I don't know. Like,
I'm sure that comes into play more when you're playing with more than just 2 people, right? Because invariably someone is going to get locked in and not be able to do anything, but that doesn't mean that the other, 3 or 4 people can't just keep going.
Wow.
Yeah. So I really want to try this one with more people because I think the like grid aspect of it is super interesting, and you just shuffle the cards again and you're going to get different buildings with different layouts.
Well, and having more people means 3 turns before you get resources, like of getting random resources, right?
Yes. And so the planning is going to be way different too, right? And then it's also a it takes a few turns to get back around to you. But they're probably going to be building some of this, like, buildings that are relatively similar to the ones you're building. So it wouldn't be, like, all necessary that, like, you're just going to be getting hosed for 3 turns in a row before you build something, right?
Oh, of course not. But it would be a lot more planning, right, to make sure that you're following your plan.
Yeah, it becomes much harder to plan in that 3-person or 4-person game, right, than in the 2-person.
That's cool,
one.
Man.
And yeah, it is super interesting. I think the And the kinds of like strategic thinking you have to do in this game is like really different from the kind you'd had to do in Splendor, which was a fun change of
Sure.
pace.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like in one game of it, I've happened upon like a really efficient layout of houses, so that the house is it's three cubes, right, arranged in like an L or an elbow, and they're three different colors. And the way feeding the houses worked in that game was, I think the piece was called a greenhouse, and a greenhouse would feed any number of houses as long as the houses were adjacent to each other or adjacent to other houses.
Oh, so you could chain them.
Okay.
Yes, it's like one contiguously together group of houses, it would feed all of them, right? But if you have another house over here somewhere else, then it doesn't work anymore.
Tiny Towns is a tabletop simulator add-on, so
Cool.
Uh-huh.
And I just happened upon like a really efficient placement of L's where like I could loop the L's back and forth on top of each other to squeeze all these connected houses in all the corners of my board that I wasn't using for like other stuff. And then I had like a ludicrous amount of houses by the end, which was
Splendor
fun.
is also available.
I also enjoy that this game, Tiny Towns' rulebook says that the pieces aren't the limiting factor. If you need more pieces than they give you, you can just go out and like figure out whatever you want to replace them. It's like if you need 800 things for some reason, they're just like, yeah.
How would you need more?
Like,
I'm confused as to why you would need more stuff though.
Well, if you're playing with 4 people, right, and everyone is building a bunch of houses,
You might run out.
You might run out of house
Okay.
pieces. Yeah. They give you like little wooden block pieces of all these various types of buildings. So, eventually you run out. Okay, I get it. I like that they're like, look, man, we're not going to like limit you to the number of houses we have. If you want to just like put pennies or something on here, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you run into a sweet idea like I did that one time, and you just want to have like a bunch of houses all over your town, they should let you,
Sure.
right?
Cool.
So I enjoyed that. It's certainly a Tiny Towns is a much longer game than Splendor is. You can't just like play a game of Tiny Towns. You got to get it out and just all these little pieces and stuff. There are a lot of little pieces in Tiny Towns, so not so great for like young kids maybe.
All right. Well, I think that was a great. I think it's great to talk board games once in a while. Honestly, personally, I just miss them so much right now. Oh my god. It's refreshing to find out about. Hey, Kit weighed in on some of our dilemmas from last pod, so I have to throw out here. Although he kind of split the difference and didn't solve much, because it gives JJ 1 point. No, it ties JJ up and then makes him wronger. So yes, we have to say them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's all about me. Great. Good.
He weighs in and says DK64 is good. So, and then ties it up with Power Rangers is better than Pokemon. Song-wise. I'll be very clear. But I think we made our cases last time. And just the pile on DK64. Please keep it coming. But in the meantime, if you guys have board games that you're sitting on that you really want to play and you want us to talk about them or look into them or tell us about them, where would you go?
You can send those to podcast@weweregamers.com. That's our email address. We will read your emails, and we like to answer them, but we batch them up. So, send them to us, and once we get a critical mass, we'll eventually read them and talk about them right on here. Apparently, they like it. We all like it when we send things that prove me wrong, so feel free to do that. Apparently increases your odds of getting your emails read on this podcast, so please do that. We are also on social media everywhere at We Were Gamers, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever. You can follow us on those platforms to find out when our new podcasts are coming out. We are available, this podcast, on really everything. We tried to put it on. So, hey, listen to us where you want to, and we'll be coming at you with more podcasts soon.
Yay. Very shortly, carbon scoring and subspace transmissions. So keep an eye out for those.
Good stuff.
Until next time.